What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Control Room. I'm your host, Esrael Johannes. Now, this is going to be a longer video, but it's going to be pretty in-depth. And if you're listening on audio, I'm going to be pretty detailed about what I'm talking about. But if you are watching this on YouTube, you will see some accompanying video that I'm bringing in from the Cleveland Cavaliers-Dallas Mavericks game. But first, I do want to mention that this show has passed 100 downloads, 300 views, 75,000 impressions on all these different platforms across 12 states and 7 countries. So shout out to everyone who has been consuming this, who's been watching it, who's been listening to it. There's someone out in Virginia who's listening to every single episode. I thank you. And then someone out in Canada who downloaded everything in one day. So shout out to all of you who've been rocking along with me in this journey. All right, now let's get to the top topics here, because the Mavs have gone through a bit of a stretch where they don't look very good. And it starts with Max Strus with the juice. All right, so he wins the game for Cleveland with a buzzer beater, and it's cracked the backs of the Mavs. We're going to break down the mistakes from that game on the Mavs side, and then take a quick look at their game between Boston and Philadelphia. And then for the Pelicans, they lost to Miami and Chicago. However, they had big wins against New York and Indiana, and we'll look at how those 2 wins pointed the Pelicans in the right direction. And then for the Thunder, they had a 6-game win streak before one loss in San Antonio. However, we'll take a look at the big 3 and their supporting cast, and look at Chet and Wemby in that rookie-to-rookie matchup, as well as break down how the Thunder got the number 1 spot in the West against Phoenix. First off, Mavs and Cavs. The most important part about this game was in the last 5 minutes. And so I've broken that down into 3 different parts. So let's start first with setting up where we are. The Mavs were down by as many as 15 points in this game, but they ended up being up by 10 in the fourth quarter. So this is where I'll put in the video. They're up 7 with 5 minutes to go. Then Luka chooses not to drive on Jared Allen. Instead, he shoots a 3. He misses, but then Maxey gets this offensive rebound, passes to PJ Washington, and then Maxey pops, knocks down an open 3. All right, so on the next possession, Cleveland doesn't score. Dallas gets a stop, but then rebounding issues, right? The ball slips from Kyrie's hand into Jared Allen's hands, and that leads to second chance points for Cleveland. On the next play, Kyrie and Maxey are in this give and go action. So Kyrie gives it to Maxey, and then he cuts to the basket. Maxey gives it right back to him. Finger roll layup at the cup. Now, the next play, Spida and Strus, Donovan Mitchell and Max Strus, are running a pick and roll. This ends with Strus hitting a 3-pointer. There's a lot to go into this play. All right, so if you look at how it's being defended, Tim Hardaway Jr., trips while going over this screen. Luka doesn't rotate, so Maxey's the one closing out on Strus after coming up with Jared Allen. Now let me set up for those of you in audio who are listening, who is on the floor and where they are, because that's going to be important in just a moment. Darius Garland is on the right wing, and he's guarded by PJ Washington. Karis LeVert is on the right corner, and he's being guarded by Kyrie Irving. Evan Mobley is not even on the floor. So now I'm going to break down their shooting by zone since January 1st, 2024. And this does not include any games that they played in March. Most recently, the Knicks game that the Cavs played. Those numbers are not included in these percentages, but they make up a good portion of everything from January 1st. So in the restricted area for Max Strus, let me break down Max Strus's numbers first. Strus is shooting 70% in the restricted area. From the left corner 3, 28%. From the right corner 3, 25%. And then from the wing, 37.8%. So he's really good in the restricted area. Really good from the wing at the 3-point line. Karis LeVert is at 61.4% in the restricted area. 36.4% in the left corner, so that's his great spot. 12.5% in the right corner, and that's going to play a big part in just a moment. And 35.7% from the wing. Then Darius Garland is shooting 64.7% in the restricted area, 33.3% from the left corner, 40% from the right corner. Again, that will play a role in a moment. And 34.8% from the wing. Then Evan Mobley, who again is not on the floor at this moment, is shooting 80% in the restricted area, 33% in the left corner, 28.6% in the right corner, and 50% from the wing. All right, so you got guys with different spots that are their bread and butter compared to everyone else on their roster. Now, check this out. Let's go back to this play. So to me, there seems to be miscommunication between Luka and Hardaway. They end up doubling Mitchell because Hardaway fought over Strus's screen. Now, there's the trip Mitchell passes to Strus. Let's say had they shown a double, all right? Then let's say Hardaway or Luka recovered. You would have one defender on Strus. Then that would force a screen from Jared Allen, because if you look right here, Jared Allen is actually coming up to set a screen so that Maxey can now guard Strus, and then Jared Allen will take whoever is coming up guarding Strus initially. That would put Strus in pick and roll coverage, or in pick and roll action with Maxey in coverage. So now Maxey has to make a choice. If he chooses to play in drop coverage and give Strus some room, one, he would give up the three. Or if he at least shows he's going to press and then back off in the drop coverage, Strus would hit a mid-range shot, which since January 1st, he's shooting 50%. So you don't want to do that. Instead, Maxey would need to force Strus off the three-point line, and then Strus would drive to the basket, and then this would bring Kyrie, who's currently guarding the corner, the right corner, to come over and help Maxey guard Strus. And so now Strus has to say, I'm either going to shoot a contested shot over a double team or kick it out to the guy in the corner. Based on these percentages, this is why I bring up why that's the best defense to play in this situation, because the guy that Kyrie is guarding is Karis LeVert in the right corner, who's only shooting 12.5%. Naturally, when you see an open guy shooting for three, especially from the corner, you're going to want to rotate. But if you know these percentages ahead of time, then PJ Washington, who's guarding Darius Garland in the wing, he can stay home. He doesn't have to leave Garland, right? Because Garland still shoots an effective percentage from the wing. So he stays on Garland. Then Kyrie's helping on Strus. Karis LeVert is open, and he's taking a shot where he only converts 12.5% from January 1st. That might put you in a better situation than what ended up happening for the Mavs. And speaking of Karis LeVert, why this is also important, why the zone is important, is because when he dropped 29 points in Dallas on December 27th, he made 5 3-pointers from the left wing. His only other 3 came from the right wing. So the right corner is actually the zone you want him to shoot. He's not shooting well from there. All right, so that doesn't work out for Dallas. Now we move on to the next play, which isn't really much of a play because, as you'll see here, Hardaway inbounds the ball to Kyrie, but then Kyrie steps out of bounds in order to inbound it himself. But the refs call Cleveland ball, and so this has become a topic of contention because naturally when you see someone just kind of walk out with the ball, even if someone if a teammate slings it over to him, you expect the person that is being given the ball to reset the inbounds. But that's not what the referee called, and so it became a turnover, which was rare for the Mavs. They only had 5 in this game. Because of that, Cleveland gets the ball. Then Strus finds his way to the right corner, which he doesn't shoot very well from. He only shoots 25% from January 1st. But he gets open in the right corner. Luka's the one trailing him. And then he shoots a 3, and it goes in. So what does this mean? It means Max Strus is hot. You cannot let that man get hot anymore. He's already shot 2 in a row on you. So now the score for Dallas is 110 to 106. Before this stretch of threes from Strus, Dallas was up 110 to 100. All right, so now the lead has evaporated. It's getting closer. It's getting tighter. And we're moving on to the next play. So Kyrie brings the ball up. Cleveland runs this 2-1-2 zone look, but then the moment that Maxey comes over all the way across the court and sets a pick, then you notice, okay, it looks more like it's man-to-man. Kyrie recognizes that, and he goes over the top of the screen and then hits a 3 from the right slot, and that brings the Mavs back up 7 points. All right, now in the next play, Max Strus and Jarrett Allen are providing what's called an A-set pick and roll for Donovan Mitchell. What this means is that you have 2 screeners coming on either side of you, and you as the ball handler get to choose which screen you want to take. And that is primarily based on matchup. So based on what's happened so far in the last minute or two, whoever is guarding Strus, it's normally Luka or Hardaway, that seems to be a more effective pick and roll situation than whoever's on Jarrett Allen. So Mitchell's immediately looking to repeat the pick and roll success with Luka guarding Strus. He chooses Strus's screen, then Hardaway tries to fight over the screen and then gets caught in a double team with Luka on Mitchell yet again. Then Strus pops and hits a 3 from the right slot. Hardaway doesn't recover in time. Luka doesn't recover in time. No one recovers in time. All right, so that's another bucket for Strus. 3 in a row now. The next play for Dallas, Kyrie drives past LeVert from the right wing, and Jarrett Allen shows help, but then returns to Maxey. Okay, then Mitchell leaves PJ Washington from the weak side and helps LeVert contest the layup with Allen behind Kyrie for a potential block. So now you have a situation where Kyrie's kind of stuck. He can make layups over double coverage, over triple coverage. He can do that, but that's probably not the shot you want him to take. So you need to give him an outlet for him to pass. Well, Hardaway is open on the left corner, and he shoots 41.4% since January 1st through the month of February. This does not include his games against Boston and Philadelphia because he has regressed. All right, but from January 1st to the end of February, he's also shooting 41.4%, but then since the trade deadline, I should say, he's shooting 54.5% from the left corner. So that's a great shot for him. Luka is in the left slot area, and he's covered by Max Strus. If he slides a bit over to the wing, he gives Kyrie a better angle to pass the ball and then give himself an open look. Or if he wants to swing it to Hardaway, he can do that as well. That doesn't happen, and so Kyrie has to take the shot, and he misses. All right, so every point matters, every possession matters at this point in the game, and the Mavs are not converting where they can. So Mitchell gets the rebound, then he passes to Darius Garland in transition with Strus running the right wing to the corner. All right, so now Hardaway is guarding Strus again, and then look at how Strus breaks from this route and cuts back to the right wing. All right, now Hardaway reacts late, so Garland passes and then sets a screen on Hardaway, gives Strus a bit more room, and don't forget, he's hot. What does he do? He hits a 3 over Hardaway Jr. from the right slot, the right wing, where he was shooting 37.8% since January 1st. And the score is now Dallas 113, Cleveland 112. So not a fun time. All right, Strus's latest 3 capped a 12-3 Cleveland run in 1 minute and 8 seconds, shooting 4 for 4 from 3. This is when Jason Kidd finally calls a timeout. I don't know why it took this long for him to recognize they're hunting Hardaway, but he finally recognized it. So let's get into the second part of the last 5 minutes here. Jason Kidd swaps in Josh Green for Tim Hardaway Jr., and then out of the timeout, Luka runs this pick and roll with Josh Green and gets the switch between Strus and Garland. Green rolls to the basket, but then Luka doesn't pass to him, which I've seen him make passes like that, and I kind of wished he did, but he did not. So then Luka runs another pick and roll with Maxey to get Strus and Jarrett Allen to switch. So now that Luka can get that big man, he can drive by him, potentially get an easy layup. However, Luka tries to drive, but then watch this. Allen is standing his ground and defending really well. So Luka then takes another step back three and misses, similar to earlier in the last 5 minutes of this game. So now Mitchell brings the ball up after a Strus rebound, runs this pick and roll with Strus again to switch Maxey and PJ. So Mitchell penetrates and then kicks to Garland in the right corner. Garland gets run off the three-point line by Josh Green. PJ is now trapping him from the right low post. Okay, so then Mitchell pops back out to the right wing, and Maxey's kind of stuck. He's caught between defending Mitchell at the right wing or Strus at the top of the key. Garland swings to Mitchell. Spida hits the three. Boom. Points. Now Dallas is bringing the ball up. Kyrie's bringing the ball up. He's denying the PJ screen. LeVert is defending Kyrie. Mitchell is on PJ. As Kyrie rolls left and passes to Luka, Maxey cuts from the left wing and seals Jarrett Allen. So now Luka is driving with Strus defending, and Garland eventually helps. Then Luka kicks to Josh Green in the left corner. However, when Green shoots this three, he gets clobbered by Darius Garland. No foul is called, and then Cleveland recovers the ball. All right, so a defensive play that just happened, but an argument can be made that Josh Green should have been shooting 3 free throws there. So Karis LeVert brings up the ball now, and he passes to Darius Garland. He runs this pick and roll with Strus so that he can get Luka switched onto him. So now it's point guard to point guard. Luka is turning around to kind of make sure his defense is set, but as he turns to his right and then double checks that his defense is set, Darius Garland recognizes that Luka doesn't see him. So he just takes off and gets right to the basket. And the only one that can stop him now is Maxey, who does, and blocks him at the rim. Some could say that that was a foul, but if they're not going to call it on one side, don't call it on the other. All right, so the Mavs now get the block. They get the rebound. PJ Washington is pushing the pace, drops the ball off to Kyrie. Kyrie then drives around Strus, but hooks his arm. This is going to be an important play to remember as we get to the end of this game. So he's hooking his arm. That's an offensive foul. It's Cavaliers ball. So it's more than just a turnover. It's also a foul, and we've passed the 2-minute mark in the fourth quarter. There's less than 2 minutes left, so you can only have one team foul in the last 2 minutes, and unfortunately, that was the foul. The Mavs no longer have a foul to give for the rest of the game. All right, so now that that's happened, Mitchell is walking up the ball, runs this pick and roll with Karis LeVert. Luka is now guarding LeVert and switching on to Mitchell. Then PJ Washington is on Strus. Mitchell loses the ball. Josh Green and Luka run the fast break with this turnover. Luka assists Green on the fast break, dunks to tie the game at 1:15. All right, even playing field. It's back to a tie. So now in this next possession for Cleveland, Garland is the one walking up the ball. He passes it to Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell runs a pick and roll with Jarrett Allen, and then Josh Green is fighting over this screen and tries to contest Mitchell's three. Mitchell hits the three from the left wing. Everybody's hitting threes from everywhere. Nobody seems to be missing. So the score is now Dallas at 115, Cleveland at 118. All right, so Jason Kidd calls another timeout. What does he do in this situation? Because in his mind, he's probably thinking, I need offense. He brings back Hardaway. Maxey is set to inbound the ball. Hardaway is back in for Green. On JB Bickerstaff's side, Evan Mobley is now in the game, and he's guarding Maxey. Jarrett Allen is on PJ Washington. Max Strus is on Hardaway Jr. These defenders switch on the Hardaway Jr. screen. All right, so Kyrie is receiving the pass on the right side. Maxey then runs to the basket to take Mobley away and give Kyrie some room to work. Kyrie drives and floats over LeVert and a helping Evan Mobley, who's now a bit out of position because he had to chase Maxey all the way over. And so Kyrie converts the layup. It's now 118-117 Cleveland over Dallas. JB Bickerstaff now calls a timeout. Jason Kidd puts Josh Green back in for Hardaway Jr. So now Kidd is playing this offense-defense game. He's putting in Green for defense, Hardaway for offense, and just kind of cycling through this lineup because they were effective getting to to that 10-point lead until they started giving up so many points. All right, so in this play for Cleveland, after lots of traps, Green and Garland eventually get tangled up with the ball, and then Mitchell calls timeout to save the possession. JB Bickerstaff is actually running onto the court trying to call timeout, but the ref sees Mitchell. Mitchell's the one who's granted the timeout, and that's why Cleveland still has the ball in this situation. So side out again, but this time, Jason Kidd calls another timeout. Actually, not yet. This is what happens. Mobley then tries to inbound the ball. So Jason Kidd's timeout has not happened yet. Evan Mobley is trying to inbound the ball this next time. The Cavs, however, turn the ball over. It goes off of, I think it was Darius Garland's foot. It came off of somebody's foot on the Cleveland Cavaliers. So now Dallas has the ball. They have possession. They get to potentially take the lead. So now Jason Kidd calls a timeout, puts Hardaway back in for offense for Josh Green. Maxi's the one inbounding this pass to Luka. The pass is tipped by Evan Mobley, and now you got Mobley and Isaac Okoro attempting to trap Luka, but then he grabs the ball and darts to the basket. Now it's a free-for-all. Jared Allen steps up to Luka and leaves PJ Washington on the baseline. So Luka dishes this bounce pass between Allen and Strus to PJ, and then PJ finishes at the rim. That would also look like a foul, but that was not called. So the score is now 119-118 Dallas over Cleveland. Cleveland has no timeouts, and they're only at 2.6 seconds left on the clock. That's all they have left. Dallas does not have a foul to give. They can't foul anybody, or else they go to the free throw line and potentially win the game because of Kyrie's offensive foul where he hooked Strus's arm. All right, now Strus inbounds the ball to Mobley, whose back is to the basket. He's just like, I'm going to stand here and I'll give it back to you as soon as you run. So Strus is now running off of the inbounds pass. He's running from the baseline. Mobley gives it to him. Luka doesn't step up in time and allows Strus to get off this 59-foot shot. And that's the shot that just happens to go in. That's his fifth fourth quarter three-point field goal. And it ends the game with Cleveland winning 121-119. So there's a lot to look at in this game defensively on the Mavs side. All these different mistakes. I've gone through every single play here that happened in this stretch. A lot of defensive rotational issues, lineup issues that you have to look at and say, the Mavs didn't have to go through this, but they did. And the Cavaliers really decided, we're going to hunt Hardaway Jr. We're going to hunt Tim Hardaway Jr. down this stretch because he's not playing well defensively. So in these five-man lineups, when Luka made 4 straight threes to bring Dallas back in the first half, Luka was on the floor. Hardaway was also on the floor. Kleba, Washington, and Green were also on the floor. They went on a 15-4 run in the last 3 minutes and 10 seconds of the second quarter, had a 183.3 offensive rating for the game and an 80 defensive rating for the game. So that was an effective lineup, but the only reason it was effective was because Luka made 4 threes in a row. That'll make any lineup effective. During Max Strus's 12-3 run, the guys on the floor were Kyrie Irving, Tim Hardaway Jr., Maxi Kleba, PJ Washington, and Luka Doncic. Their offensive rating was really high at 172.2, so they could get you points. But the defensive rating of this lineup in this game was 147.1. That is not good. If you want to get stops, you can't have a defensive rating that's above 120. And on top of that, Tim Hardaway Jr. was involved in 3 of 4 actions defensively. And in the one action he wasn't involved in, he was defending the inbounds pass. And so he didn't seal off the right corner to help Luka. So some poor, unfortunate stats from this game. It was the Mavs' 9th loss with 5 or fewer total turnovers since the turn of the century, since 2000. It was also the 13th game this season giving up 50% from three from 4 different players. And at that point in the season, the Mavs have a 7-6 record. But the same thing happened against Boston, so now the Mavs are 7-7. Boston had 5 players with 50% from 3 or more. This Cavs game was also the first loss this season when the Mavs shoot 50% or better from the floor. They were previously 19-0. And then after their win against Toronto, which was the day after this Cleveland game, the Mavericks are now 20-1. This Cavs game is also the third loss this season when scoring 24 or more points off turnovers. So the Mavs now have a 5-3 record in those games. And they are 0-4 this season when scoring 11 or more points off turnovers in the fourth quarter. Nothing seems to make sense with these numbers. Don't even get me started on Tim Hardaway Jr.'s +3 in the fourth quarter of this game, because that mathematically might make sense, but the eye test clearly did not. All right, so let's look at some changes that were made from the Cavs game to the Raptors game. And keep in mind, this was a back-to-back. Jason Kidd's rotations changed. Daniel Gafford was on the floor only 7 minutes versus the Cavs, played 24 minutes and 36 seconds against the Raptors. Then Maxi Kleber played 27 minutes versus the Cavaliers, did not play against the Raptors due to it being a back-to-back and him still coming back from that toe injury. Derrick Jones Jr. only played 8.5 minutes in that Cavs game, and then actually played 15.5 minutes against Toronto. Then we had the return of Dante Exum, who played 16 minutes and 41 seconds, only scored 4 points and had 1 3, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. He had a +6 ± in this game. Then PJ Washington has now emerged, and Jason Kidd has been quoted as saying they're trying to get PJ to be the third scorer of this team. He attempted twice as many field goals as he did in the previous game, where Luka and Kyrie combined for 53 field goal attempts in that last game. There was such heavy usage on those two guys. So in this Toronto game, PJ scored a Mav-high 23 points, so the most he scored as a Maverick, 9 of 16 shooting from the floor, 56.3%, 5 of 10 from 3, 6 rebounds, and 3 blocks. On top of all that, it was also Luka's 25th birthday, Wednesday, February 28th. He scored 30 points on 11 of 23 shooting, 47.8%, 7 of 9 from the free throw line, 11 rebounds, 16 assists, and 2 steals. This was the most points in a triple-double on a player's birthday, and the only 30-point triple-double on their birthday in NBA history. Now let's take some quick looks at what happened against the Celtics and against the Sixers. Not fun. I don't like looking at these losses like that, but some interesting notes all the way through. So Luka Doncic had back-to-back 30-point triple-doubles. His 10th 30-point triple-double this season, that led the NBA at the time. The Boston Celtics had 7 double-digit scores led by Tatum's 32, Brown's 25, and KP's 24, Kristaps Porzingis' 24. The Mavs have lost 5 straight games when allowing 7+ double-digit scores and had previously won their first 5 games, so they're now 5-5 on the season. Boston shot 50-40-90 as a team. That's great as a player, but as a team, 55.3% from the floor, 48.8% from 3, 100% from the free throw line. It's the first game this season the Mavs have allowed a team to shoot 50-40-90. And since winning the NBA title in 2011, the Mavs are now 0-13 when giving up 50-40-90 splits to a team. All time, they are 6-23. Let's get that game out of our minds now, and unfortunately look at this Philadelphia game. Because despite the Mavs being up 11-0 early in the first quarter, they found a way to blow this game too. But let's look at the positives first. Luka had 3 straight 30-point triple-doubles, making this his 11th 30-point triple-double this season, which still leads the NBA. He's the 4th player in NBA history with 3 straight 30-point triple-doubles after Oscar Robertson, Michael Jordan, and Russell Westbrook. And Luka has had opportunities to get 3 straight triple-doubles overall. It's been at least 12, maybe 13 or 14, but he's had several opportunities to get 3 straight triple-doubles. This is the first time he's had 3 straight triple-doubles in his career. So good on him for it being 30-point triple-doubles and reaching a point of history. All right, now the Mavs have lost 4 of their last 5 after winning 7 in a row. And so it seems like every time they need just one win to get out of the play-in, they find themselves losing that one game, and they're back in the 8th spot. The dagger for me was the 3-pointer from the left corner. I believe it was Tobias Harris, because of this defensive rotation. You had 2 defenders at the basket double teaming the driver with the basketball, who then kicks out to Harris in the corner because Kyrie leaves his man. And now you got 3 guys in the paint. So this rotational defense, where I'm sure Kyrie knows, okay, I shouldn't make that rotation like that in this situation. I need to stay home because we got 2 guys in the paint. If you don't make that mistake, then you don't give up that 3. If you don't give up that 3, you're actually within fighting chance because of how much time you still have on the clock. But that's not what happened. And so Philly went up enough to essentially let this be the dagger in crunch time in that game. There's a lot that's happened with the Mavs. I don't 100% know if it's because of Jason Kidd and Jason Kidd only and his rotations and his lineups. I don't know if it's how the Mavs have just not played defense well. There seems to be a lot of different things all happening at the same time. This is not the time for it to be happening, though. We're in that last stretch before the playoffs. And what good is being good in the playoffs if you can't make it? So the Mavs really need to turn this around. But they're pros. I expect them to. However, if they don't, we're going to have some problems. All right, so let's move on to a couple of teams that have found winning ways and get over to the Pelicans and the Thunder. That's coming up in the next segment. Let's start with the Pelicans' rough week. They had this odd stretch post-All-Star break where they had 5 games in 7 days, and they ended up going 2-3 in that stretch. I don't care who you are, how long you've been in the profession. That seems like a lot of games in such a short time. So give the Pelicans credit for fighting through this one. All right, let's look at how they were sharing the ball. They are 20-5 this season when any 3 players each have 5+ assists in a game. 9-1 when Zion, B.I., and C.J., Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and C.J. McCollum each have 5 assists. And then the Pelicans are 17-3 when the whole team has 30 or more assists. They've now won 6 straight games and 14 of the last 15 when they have 30 or more assists. Let's look at the Pelicans and Knicks game here. The Pels had 3 players with 20 or more points. Trey Murphy III with 26, Brandon Ingram with 24, and Zion Williamson with 21. The 10th game this season with 3 20-point scores, and their 8th straight win and 9th win in the last 10 games in that situation. Their 3-point shooting was excellent. 6 of 10 from 3 in the first quarter, 7 of 7 from 3 in the fourth quarter, 12 of 14 from the floor overall, that's 85.7%, and 10 of 11 from the free throw line. Now, the first quarter this season, shooting 100% 3-point field goals was that fourth quarter, that 7 of 7 shooting. Their 7 3-pointers made set a franchise record for most makes without a miss in any quarter. So shout out to the Pelicans. They are high flying. All right, so Trey Murphy III had 16 points in the fourth quarter on 4 of 4 from 3. His most 3-point field goals made without a miss in any quarter this season and tied the most in any quarter in his career. At the time, 16 fourth quarter points were a season high in any quarter and tied the most in any quarter in his career. I say at the time, there's a reason why. I'll get to that in a moment. First, let's look at the Pelicans game against the Pacers in Indiana, because the Pelicans had plane issues when leaving New York. This is what we were told when we were doing the broadcast. They didn't get to their hotel in Indiana until about 5:30 in the morning. So not ideal when you have to deal with plane issues that late in the night. Almost every Pelican played anyway. despite this odd schedule situation. So that was a message to the team. We're committed. We're all in. We're trying to make this push. We're not missing games now. All right, so everyone is buying in. In this game, you have 3 20-point scores again. Brandon Ingram with 30, Zion with 23, and CJ with 23. This is only the first loss when all three scored 20 or more points since CJ was traded from Portland, and this snaps a 4-game win streak. So it hasn't happened often, but when it does happen, normally it means wins for the Pelicans. This was not that time, though. The Pacers scored 40 in the first quarter, and that's kind of where everything fell apart for the Pels. Pascal Siakam led all Pacers with 24 points and 11 rebounds for his third double-double this season, and the Pacers had 6 double-digit scores for the 41st game this season. Yes, that's not a typo. 6 double-digit scores for the 41st game this season. They are 31-10 with 6 or more players in double figures. And New Orleans is 7-8 this season when allowing 6 or more double-digit scores. Miles Turner had 14 points and 10 rebounds for his 13th double-double of the season, and Tyrese Halliburton had 17 points and 13 assists for his 34th double-double this season. Now, double-double stat, that's a lot of double-doubles for a team. Indiana has only one game this season with 3 players recording a double-double in the same game. That's this one. In franchise history, they're 58-26, so they win more games than they lose. A lot more games than they lose. New Orleans, however, for them, this is the second game allowing 3 players to get double-doubles this season. They're 1-1 in those games, but 12-25 in franchise history. So now let's move on to the Pacers-Pelicans game where they had a home and home. They flew to New Orleans, played this game again, and the Pelicans got right back on them, scoring 48 points in the first quarter. That ties the most in any quarter in franchise history. And they held Indiana to 42.1% from the floor and 31.3% from 3, which is crazy because Indiana is one of the best shooting teams in the league. The Pels also had 28 fast break points, and they are now 4-0 this season with 28 or more fast break points. Trey Murphy III had 17 points in the second quarter. That's a new career high for points in any quarter, which was previously set 2 games prior, which I had mentioned about 5 minutes ago, on February 27th at the Knicks with 16 points in the fourth quarter. And then on the Pacers side, Tyrese Halliburton was held to 0 points on 0 of 7 shooting from the floor, 0 of 6 from 3. He was held scoreless for only the second time in his career and for his first time with the Pacers. So, great game. Great game for the Pelicans to get right back into it. They are currently 5th in the West. And for the rest of the way, they've got a tough schedule ahead of them. They got the 12th toughest remaining schedule. Their strength of schedule is ranked at .510. They have 10 games at home and 11 on the road. Now, for the Thunder, we're going to transition to Oklahoma City. They were on a 6-game win streak, and from February 11th to the 27th, they had a 6-0 record in that. Obviously, it's a 6-game win streak. There were only one of 2 teams to go 6-0. It was the Thunder and it was the Boston Celtics. Their offensive rating in this stretch was a 123, which is second in the NBA behind Boston, meaning they were first in the West. Their defensive rating was 103.5, which is second in the NBA behind Minnesota. And their net rating was 19.5, which is second in the NBA behind Boston, meaning first in the West. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in this stretch from February 11th to the 27th was second in the NBA in points per game at 33.0 behind Luka Doncic, shooting 55.4% from the floor and 60.9% from 3. Jalen Williams, in that stretch, was second on the team in scoring at 23.3, shooting 58.8% from the floor and 48% from 3. Then Chet Holmgren from February 11th to the 27th, was third on the team and second among rookies in points per game at 19.3, shooting 59.7% from the floor and 42.9% from 3. So efficiency all across the board from the big 3 during this stretch. Then the Thunder played the Spurs and had to deal with Victor Wembanyama yet again. Now, the Spurs had their number for some reason in this game, but the Thunder came back to take the lead in the fourth quarter. The Spurs, however, shot 19 of 39 from 3, 48.7%, and 5 of 10 from 3 in the fourth quarter. Now, this seems odd because they're not a great three-point shooting team. In fact, the Thunder shoot 39.6% from 3 on the season, which is first in the NBA. The Spurs shoot 34.6% from 3, which is last in the NBA, and that's before Sunday's games. So you have the team in first place and the team in last place from 3 playing against each other, and the team that's last in place is the one that's actually outscoring the team who is first in threes. Doesn't make sense, but that's what happened. And the Thunder recognized that. They said it as much in their post-game press conferences. The defense was not up to snuff, and the Spurs got their number in this game. Now, Chet versus Wemby, big Rookie of the Year battle. A quick box score recap here. For Chet Holmgren, 23 points on 8 of 12 shooting, 6 of 6 from the free throw line, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and a block. And then Victor Wembanyama had 28 points on 9 of 17 shooting, 5 of 7 from 3, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and 5 blocks. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that. I don't know of a rookie who has done that. Not in a long time, anyway. So this is going to be a fight to the finish for this Rookie of the Year battle. But for me, Victor Wembanyama is leading, and it's performances like this that give me that impression. All right, but that's just one loss. How do the Thunder bounce back against the Phoenix Suns? Well, you have multiple runs made by both teams. The largest lead for OKC was 24, and the largest lead for Phoenix was 13. The Thunder end up winning this game, and so this becomes the 13th 10-plus point comeback win this season, which leads the NBA. The Thunder had 16 steals, which contributed to this win. That's the third most this season, and their most on the road. This is also their 14th game this season with all 5 starters in double figures, and they are 12-2 in those games, and have also won 5 straight in that situation. It didn't come without some damage because Jusuf Nurkic had a career-high 31 rebounds, and this is, that's not a typo either. Career-high 31 rebounds. A lot of historical notes that I'm going to mark here. His previous career high was 23. 31 rebounds this season is the most by a player. It's the most by an opponent in franchise history for the Thunder or Supersonics since Michael Cage had 30 rebounds with the Los Angeles Clippers and won the rebounding title on April 24th, 1988. So it's been a long time since this team has gone up against a rebounder like that. Nurkic was 1 rebound shy of tying Moses Malone's record for most rebounds against the Oklahoma City franchise. This also ties the 9th most rebounds in a game in NBA history and was the most since Kevin Love on November 12th, 2010, when he was still with the Minnesota Timberwolves. All right, so how do you overcome a performance like that? You have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, MVP candidate, in your pocket. He scored 35 points, which seems like he does every game, 15 of 27 from the floor, 55.6%, 5 of 7 from the free throw line, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. Stat stuffer. Nancy Lieberman, every time when she talks about Shai, she accurately describes this man as a stat stuffer. He does everything on the box score. This was his 45th 30-point game this season. He's the first player with 45 or more 30-point games in consecutive seasons since Michael Jordan. And I actually looked this up today. There are only 5 players in NBA history who have had consecutive seasons of 45-plus 30-point games. Pause. This is future me letting you know that there are not 5 NBA players in history to have consecutive seasons with 45 or more 30-point games. There are actually 6. And for some reason, the guy left off this list I shouldn't have left off this list, so I'm just letting you know about this error ahead of time. Wilt Chamberlain is at the very top of this list. He was the first one to have consecutive seasons of 45 or more 30-point games and did it from 1963 to 1966. And let me let you know about why that can happen sometimes. This isn't something about Wilt Chamberlain playing in such an older time. Actually, what happened was in 1964 to 1965, Wilt Chamberlain had played for two teams, the San Francisco Warriors, and then midway through the season, he went to the Philadelphia 76ers. And so he had 20 games with one team, 30 games with another, where he had 30 points in those games. And the way I had my team split his season with two teams. And so because neither of those hit the threshold of 45, it basically nixed him off the list. And so I didn't see that it was in totality 50 games for the season. So it didn't look like he was having consecutive seasons. However, he did it 3 years in a row and had 50 games or more with 30 or more points. So Wilt Chamberlain is at the top of this list. Then Oscar Robertson in 1965 to 1967, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar 1970 to 1972, Adrian Dantley 1980 to 1982, Michael Jordan 1986 to 1991, so he did it for 5 years straight, and then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from 2022 to 2024. Just wanted to update the list for you, let you guys know there are 6 players in NBA history with consecutive seasons of 45 or more games with 30 or more points. All right, back to the episode. Let's look at the Thunder's remaining schedule here, because they're a little bit easier than the Pelicans. They have the 17th toughest remaining schedule at about 500, with 11 games at home and 11 on the road. Can the Thunder keep the number one spot? With the way Denver has been playing defense as of late, all the Thunder really have to do is just win the games that are in front of them, and they could potentially take the number one spot. They don't have tiebreakers at the moment with Minnesota because they're 2-2 in the season series, and that means that because they're in the same division, you now go to division record, which Oklahoma City is 10-4 and Minnesota's 8-2. So Minnesota can actually have a better division record at the end of the season and overtake Oklahoma City if they end up tied. So Oklahoma City has to win outright, has to have a better record overall outright than Minnesota in order to hold on to that tiebreaker, quote unquote tiebreaker, to hold on to the 1 seed, I should say. The Clippers look like they're probably going to get stuck at 3 or 4. Probably 4. Denver is probably going to be 3 or 2 if they can somehow get past Minnesota. So it is very much possible that the Thunder can keep that number one spot. Just a matter of how these last 20 or so games play out. So, speaking of upcoming games, let's transition in the next segment to some upcoming matchups for Week 20. That's coming up next. In the next episode, what we've got coming up is a recap of Week 20. There have been days where I've put a little bit more time into some of these episodes, and so some weeks have kind of blurred together. But we're at the point where we're at the 20th, we're hitting the 20th week of the NBA. So we're going to take a look at some of those games. The schedule at work is starting to get a little tight with this entire playoff push. We're starting baseball in about a month, so it's going to be pretty busy at the studio, but we're going to keep this thing going, try to do it every week. We're going to keep it up to date as much as possible. So, into the 20th week we go. Let's look at the National NBA tip-off. Tuesday, March 5th, the Celtics and the Cavaliers will play at 7:30, 6:30 Central on TNT, followed by the Suns and the Nuggets at 10:09 Central on TNT. Wednesday, March 6th, the Clippers and the Rockets will play at 7:30, 6:30 Central on ESPN, followed by the Bucks and the Warriors at 10:09 Central. Then Thursday, March 7th, the Heat and the Mavericks will play at 7:30, 6:30 Central on TNT and on Bally Sports Southwest, if you're in the Dallas region. That's going to be followed by Boston and Denver at 10:09 Central on TNT. Friday, March 8th, The Timberwolves and the Cavaliers will play at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on ESPN, followed by the Bucks and the Lakers at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on ESPN. Then Saturday, March 9th, the Celtics and the Suns will play at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central on ABC. And then Sunday, you have the Sixers and the Knicks at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central on ESPN, followed by the Timberwolves and the Lakers at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central on ESPN. Now, on local television, because we are starting to run into some blackouts here, just letting you know, Monday, March 4th, which is when I'm recording this today, the Oklahoma City Thunder will play the Los Angeles Lakers at 10:30, 9:30 Central on Bally Sports Oklahoma and Spectrum Sportsnet. Then Tuesday, March 5th, the Pelicans and the Raptors will play at 7:30, 6:30 Central on Bally Sports New Orleans and Sportsnet. And then the Pacers and the Mavs will play at 8:30, 7:30 Central on Bally Sports Indiana and Bally Sports Southwest. Wednesday, March 6th, the Thunder and the Trailblazers tip off at 10:09 Central on Bally Sports Oklahoma and Root Sports. Friday, March 8th, the Pelicans and the Sixers will play at 7:06 Central on Bally Sports New Orleans and NBC Sports Philadelphia. And the Heat and the Thunder will play at 8/7 Central on Bally Sports Sun and KSBI. So that's going to be over-the-air local television, not on Bally Sports Oklahoma. Then Saturday, March 9th, the Mavs and the Pistons will play at 7:06 Central on Bally Sports Southwest and Bally Sports Detroit. And then Sunday, March 10th, the Pelicans and the Hawks will play at 6:05 Central on Bally Sports New Orleans and Peachtree TV. So those of you in the Atlanta region, that's your over-the-air television, it sounds like. And then the Grizzlies and the Thunder will play at 7:06 Central on Bally Sports Southeast and Bally Sports Oklahoma. So that's the Week 20 slate. Next episode, we will recap what has gone on so far in Week 20. That does it for me. Thanks again for watching and for listening. I hope this breakdown has been great for you. I'm probably not going to do that as often in the upcoming episodes, but I felt that was important this time around. So thanks again for sticking with it all the way through. I appreciate your support. That does it for me. This has been The Control Room. I'm your host, Esrael Yohannes, signing off.